When somebody says, I want solar, that does not tell us enough. That is like saying, I want a vehicle. Do you need a car to drive to work? Do you need a truck to pull a trailer? Do you need a tractor to work land? They all have engines, but they are built for different jobs. Solar is the same way. Not every solar system is built to do the same thing. Some systems are built to lower an electric bill. Some systems are built to keep power on during outages. Some systems are built because there is no utility power available at all. Those are three different goals. And those goals usually lead to three different types of systems: grid-tied, hybrid, and off-grid. Today we are going to break those down in plain language. One of the biggest problems in solar is that people use the same words to describe different systems. Somebody may say they have solar, but that does not tell us if they have batteries. It does not tell us if they can run during an outage. It does not tell us if they are connected to the power company. So before we talk about panels, inverters, charge controllers, or batteries, we need to ask the first question. What do you need the system to do? That question controls everything else. If your goal is to lower your electric bill, one system may make sense. If your goal is to ride through storms and outages, that is a different system. If your goal is to power a cabin, RV, boat, or remote property with no utility service, that is different again. The equipment follows the goal. Let's start with grid-tied solar. Grid-tied solar is the most common type of residential solar system. A basic grid-tied system usually has solar panels, microinverters or a grid-tied string inverter, a main electrical panel, a utility meter, and a connection to the utility grid. Most grid-tied systems do not have batteries. That surprises a lot of people. They picture solar panels charging a big battery bank. But in many homes, that is not what is happening. During the day, the solar panels make power. That power helps run the home. If the house needs more power than the solar is making, the utility supplies the difference. If the solar is making more power than the house is using, that extra power may be sent back to the utility, depending on local rules and the agreement with the power company. The main reason people choose grid-tied solar is simple. They want to lower the electric bill. They are not necessarily trying to live off-grid. They are not necessarily trying to have backup power. They are trying to reduce what they buy from the utility. That is why grid-tied solar is usually the lowest cost way to add solar to a house. But there is a trade-off. A standard grid-tied solar system does not provide backup power during an outage. If the utility grid goes down, the inverter shuts down. Even if the sun is shining, that is not a defect. That is how it is designed. This is called anti-islanding. The inverter shuts down, so it does not send power onto utility lines while workers may be repairing them. So, grid-tied solar is good for lowering the bill. But by itself, it is not an emergency power system. Simple way to remember it. Grid-tied solar uses the utility as its backup. Now, let's talk about hybrid solar. A hybrid system connects solar, batteries, and the utility grid together. It usually has solar panels, a hybrid inverter, a battery bank, a main panel or critical loads panel, and a utility connection. When the grid is working, a hybrid system can behave a lot like a grid-tied system. It can use solar during the day. It can charge batteries. It can use the utility when needed. But the big difference shows up when the power goes out. A properly designed hybrid system can disconnect from the utility and keep selected loads powered from the batteries and solar. That is what people are usually thinking about when they say they want solar backup. They want the refrigerator to stay on. They want lights. They want internet. They want medical equipment, fans, freezers, or maybe part of the house powered during an outage. That is where hybrid systems shine. But they cost more. Why? Because batteries are not cheap. Hybrid inverters are more complex. The system has to be designed to safely disconnect from the utility during an outage. It also has to manage battery charging, solar production, and loads. So, hybrid is not just grid-tied with a battery slapped onto it. It is a different system with a different purpose. Grid-tied solar is mainly about savings. Hybrid solar is about savings plus resilience. A simple way to remember it: hybrid solar uses batteries as backup. Now let's talk about off-grid solar. An off-grid system has no utility connection, none. The solar system is the power company. An off-grid system usually has solar panels, a charge controller, a battery bank, an off-grid inverter, and the loads being powered. Many off-grid systems also have a generator for backup. Off-grid systems are common in cabins, remote properties, RVs, boats, hunting camps, and places where utility power is not available. This is where planning really matters. In a grid-tied system, if the solar does not make enough power, the utility helps. In a hybrid system, if the solar does not make enough power, the battery or utility may help. But in an off-grid system, there is no utility to fall back on. Every watt has to be produced, stored, and managed by the system. That means you have to understand your loads. How much power do you use each day? How big does the battery bank need to be? How much solar can you collect on a good day? What happens on cloudy days? How long do you need to run without sun? What loads are critical? What loads can wait? Off-grid solar gives you independence, but it also gives you responsibility. If the system is undersized, you run out of power. If the battery bank is too small, you struggle at night. If the solar array is too small, you never fully recover. Off-grid solar is not just buying parts. It is designing your own small power company. Simple way to remember it: off-grid solar replaces the utility completely. So let's put these side by side. Grid-tied solar is connected to the utility. It usually does not have batteries. It lowers the electric bill. It shuts down during an outage. Hybrid solar is connected to the utility and also has batteries. It can lower the bill and provide backup power when properly designed. It costs more, but it solves a bigger problem. Off-grid solar has no utility connection. It must produce, store, and deliver all the power. It requires the most planning because there is no power company to catch you when the system falls short. So the big difference is this: grid-tied lowers the bill, hybrid lowers the bill and provides outage backup, and off-grid replaces the utility. The question is not, which solar system is best? That is the wrong question. The better question is, what problem are you trying to solve? If you want the lowest cost way to reduce your electric bill, grid-tied may be enough. If you want backup power during outages, hybrid may be the better fit. If there is no utility power available, off-grid is the answer. People do not buy solar panels, they buy outcomes. Some buy a lower electric bill, some buy backup power, some buy independence. The equipment follows the goal. That is why understanding the difference between grid-tied, hybrid, and off-grid matters. Before you design any solar system, ask the first question: what do I need this system to do?